smokes, shares of Snap soar more than 23% a day after the earnings release here, folks. Oh my God, you know that little yellow app, something that I've never used or no one even talks about anymore? Well, if you bought into that on the IPO, you were bored for a little while as the stock dropped a whopping 70%, yet today, woo, we're getting back way past all-time highs here, folks. So congratulations to anybody that held on through that turmoil, because man, oh man, it is becoming the precursor for what we're about to talk about, which is the earnings release coming up for, say, Facebook, Google, primarily focusing on Facebook today. But before we dive down into that, what were the earnings looking like for Snap? Because, oh my God, for the stock to jump up over 20%, guys, it was crushing. Like, it was the definition of crushing. Take a look at this. At the quarter end, second quarter for 2020, they did $454 million in revenue. And just take a look at this, $982 million. That's over 100% increase, guys. So it comes as no surprise that we're seeing Facebook trade up on this news today. I mean, take a look at this. It is trading up 5.81%. Google is not falling too far behind at 3.8%. Now, these two stocks crushing the fangs today because obviously they're directly related to advertising, which is all Snap does. So we're going to be seeing these earnings release come out next week, which I am super excited for here, folks. But let me talk about Facebook, more particularly some things you might not know. As an investor, I currently hold about 40 shares. I would still prominently like to buy more here, but in the clarity of my transparency, guys, come on, hit that like button. Let's get right into this by first of all talking about these price targets Facebook has on it, because at the higher end, we're talking about $460, which is just under $100 from where the price currently sits at around that $370. So there is still a lot of potential upside based on the current analyst expectations, but that is the higher ring, that's a higher bar. On the median, about $395, which is not even $20 out from where we are. And on the lower end, $275. I don't know what moron came up with the lower end price target, but that analyst is losing on his short position if he had the balls to take that. And the analytics that I find most fascinating coming from their Q1 earnings release here, folks, is the average revenue per user, because these numbers are just crazy. I mean, take a look at Q1 of 2020 when they were making in Canada and the US about $34.18 per user. That means you as an individual user to Facebook over a 3-month period a year ago was worth about $34, whereas today you're worth about $48 to Facebook. And that isn't like a year. That isn't a one-time deal. That is quarter over quarter, meaning over an entire year, your average value to Facebook is almost a whopping $200. There is no platform, there is no business model in the world that can state, hey guys, every single person on this platform going to make us about $200 this year. I mean, that's crazy. The worldwide, combining it all together, if we were to average it, you'd be looking at about $9.27, not nearly as advantageous. So clearly the vast majority of Facebook's money is coming from the US and Canada, with Europe following not too far behind, being worth about $15.49 per user. And then Asia Pacific and the rest of the world are much more nominal numbers, being between $2 and about $4. But the numbers get even more interesting here when you actually take a look at the income from operation, because I want to explain to you why I think Facebook is still a buy here, why I think they could potentially be one of the largest companies competing for the largest market cap in the world. And it comes down to these income from their operations. I mean, if you take a look at Q1 of 2020, they did about $5.8 billion for the quarter, whereas in Q1 of 2021, we're talking about $11.3 billion. It's just under double, so very similar to what Snap's posting for Q2. So maybe that is a direct correlation that we are going to see still an over doubling from Q2 of 2020 going into Q2 of 2021 here. So if you were to make a bet, like many people are, it's really driving Facebook's stock price up into earnings, and that makes it a little more speculative as well. This could be a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of event. This is why I usually don't buy stocks around earnings, because just because Facebook's running up a lot now doesn't mean that it's going to run up after it releases earnings, because a lot of that could have got priced in, and heck, maybe we even see a price consolidation after that. However, let's continue on with my theory here, because what makes Facebook so valuable against all the other tech giants is their operating margin. On that last earnings for that income operation of $11.3 billion, we can see of that, they had a 43% margin. There is hardly any business in the world that will even come close to these operation numbers. And to put that into perspective, let's talk about Apple very briefly here, folks. I mean, Apple's profitability, their operating margin is 27.3%. That it comes nowhere near close to Facebook's 43. And if we dive down deeper into Apple's numbers here, guys, let's say they did a total of $274 billion in 2020 for annual revenue. Their operating income is only $66 billion, because their margins aren't nearly as juicy as Facebook. Because if we take a look at Facebook doing $85 billion in revenue for 2020, that is 1/3 of what Apple is generating, yet they are still able to generate $32 billion, almost almost half as much as Apple's operating income, yet they're generating that on 1/3 the total revenue created. See, if Facebook could even get up into that $150 billion range of revenue, they are going to be generating the same net income roughly as Apple and all these other big tech companies. So at their current growth rate, at some point we'll see an inflection where Facebook might very well potentially be making more income, net income after the revenue and the expenses, and that's what could very likely make them competing for the largest market cap in the world, currently worth $1.06 trillion here, folks. And if you take a look at Apple trading at 2.5 trillion, it is trading over double Facebook's value, yet Facebook is generating half the same operating income. So technically, if they were trading for apples to apples, let's say here, Facebook should technically be worth 1.2 trillion to put them at the same valuation metric. So technically, if we were to do that apples to apples comparison, I mean, Facebook should still see about a $200 billion upside, which kind of puts it in line with those analyst price targets of around $400 to $460 a share. Now, putting that aside, there's a ton of exciting stuff. Facebook is no longer considered a monopolistic company that can now acquire other companies, and they don't have to spin off Instagram or WhatsApp. That news propelled the stock a little bit more over the last quarter. But then on top of that, guys, one of my favorite things ever here, Oculus, guys, Quest 2. I really think Facebook is completely just dominating the entire realm that comes to virtual reality. They're still working on augmented reality, which is you put a headset on and it projects stuff in the real world. But for this is a wireless setup, the first real affordable headset, guys, that doesn't really require any plugs. You set it up without having to put any things on your wall. A kid could use this, and it is selling out like hotcakes. And this is going to be another way that they're going to start integrating ads into games. But Facebook is really trying to integrate this into their overall business model and their business philosophy of connecting you with your friends, because a lot of people are saying that games aren't exactly there just yet, even though there's some pretty cool games for Oculus. It's a matter of you can actually just sit in a room with a bunch of friends as if though you were there with them. It's just a really fascinating thing, and I feel like it's finally evolving to a level where it's going to become mass adopted, because Facebook, like Tesla, like many other companies, are losing money on the creation of this product, but they're all doing it in the faith of eventually they're going to be able to put in-game ad placements, and right now they're doing a choppy job of that, but eventually I think it'll evolve to a level where a company like Coca-Cola can say, hey, we want our Coke cans used as one of the products in this game, and then they'll find a way to integrate it into the actual use of the game where it's fluent, where you don't really notice it, and it's more subconscious than it is shoving an ad in your face and making you watch it for something like 10 seconds or whatever on YouTube, right? But in light of all of this, folks, I really want to pass this question off to you. Facebook has been one of my favorite companies of all time. I said I would buy it. I told you to buy it at 150 when the markets crashed. I bought my girlfriend at that price. I mean, she's easily doubled her money in under a year here thanks to the March 2020 crash. I mean, if you were lucky enough to catch that dip, just take a look, guys, up 137% from those lows. I said to buy it at 200. I said to buy it at 250, 300. I said last week almost to buy it at 350. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is still a buy at 372 if you have a time horizon of at least 3 to 5 years. I'm going to be sitting on my hands till earnings come out. And I'm also going to be excited to see what Google posted, because I'm really curious to see what's going on, guys. If people really sold off on the pandemic and now they're ready to go out, they're not sitting at home on their social media as much, time will truly tell. And if Snap was the precursor to anything, people are still using these platforms like there's no tomorrow. So in light of all of this, stay cool, stay awesome, folks, and I look forward to catching you tomorrow.